probably hear that little message. There we are. So I think we're officially live. What I'm going to do as well, Ray, and I know I did warn you about this, is to spotlight us, because I know there's quite a few of us here. If I'll kind of point us out from the crowd. But to say good evening and welcome. Thanks for joining us this evening, Ray.
Yeah.
Perhaps before we get to the presentation part, do you want to just say a few words about your background and your role in the community there?
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Reg, for inviting me to come along and share our experiences with you. It's not been a smooth journey, but it's been very, very interesting and I guess learning experiences, and we're moving towards our goals. So thank you very much for coming along. My personal background is that I'm a long-standing member and volunteer with the Fryston Hillam Community Association. I'm a past chair, a past trustee, currently a committee member and happy helper, and project manager for the Fryston Hillam Community Sustainability Project. So that's
how did you get into that, Ray? Then has this been? Have you been into these kind of topics for a good while now, or how did you start?
Sustainability, really, we started from a perspective of sustainability of our financial situation, and one of the key areas of how did we do that was actually to reduce our energy costs. So we got into it in that way, and as we progressed, that's literally about 15 years ago, and over that period we've progressively took action to reduce our energy costs by doing installations and different things of that nature, until I guess about 2018, 2019, when there was a trigger point within the community when our local Beerfest team, made up of a disparate group of people, some community association members, some PTA members, because we do it jointly with the PTA, and some other villagers, came together, and someone said, do you know what we should do is make our beer festival as sustainable as possible. And that's where this infamous let's get rid of plastic straws came from. But that was a trigger point in 2018. So yeah, that's how we formally got into it.
Yeah, a fascinating starting point. Probably unusual, but that's good to hear. I suppose one practicality before I get to the presentation: where is Fryston and Hillam? I guess there are some people on the call who are frantically Google mapping, but give us the gist.
Well, we're on the eastern edge of the Oak Selby District Council area. For those of you that have travelled north and south, think about the Oak Ferrybridge Power Station, and we're about 4 miles northeast of that, on the edge of the Vale of York. We sit now in the heart of what you might call the Silicon Valley of renewable energy, because within sort of 5 miles of us, we see the old power stations of Ferrybridge, of Eggborough, of Drax, the Selby Coalfield. So we've got lots and lots of power connection points which people are envious of, and consequently we've got wind farms, we've got solar farms popping up, but also we have renewable energy schemes from biomass. We have a renewable, well, it's not renewable, but it's a carbon mitigation scheme at the Oak Selby pit for dealing with methane and just emitting carbon as opposed to methane, and so on and so forth. So lots and lots going on there. And of course, battery storage. I think we've got 3 battery storage farms here, one within the parish coming up. And of course, some of you may have known about Yorkshire Green, the upgrading of the old national grid. Well, that's actually happening within our parish, where our local substation is going to double in size, but quadruple the carrying capacity of the wires.
Right.
So that's where we are.
Sounds like you're in the perfect location for this kind of project. I guess there are lots and lots of questions I'm sure will come with this, and lots of things that people want to find out. So I guess let's start doing that. If I
okay.
load your presentation up here. And then I'll give you the control. I can find your name from the list. Let's give the right.
I have to click on that.
Yeah, click on the slide and away you go.
All right, you are controlling it. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Formally, I'm here to talk about our green transformation of community buildings and Mount Fryston Hillam Community Centre to actually feature. The picture that's up there is a picture of our camel, and I put this up particularly as a start point because we hadn't got that lovely purpose-built building which appears on the publicity until 2014. Before that, the Community Association, which is a voluntary-run charity, it was built around this single building, which was built by volunteers in the 1970s. The box on the end was added in 2011, and the conservatory in 2013. And we did it all on a shoestring. I think we borrowed about £8,000 to do the box and about £6,000 to do the conservatory. And so we had a hybrid building. So what you see when you see the new building, it's just sort of skin deep. You know, we're having to deal with these things as well. So I didn't want anybody to think, well, all they've done is just modify a very good building. This should work. It should come down. Oh, no. Right. I'm controlling again, I think. I am controlling. Right. So I can't talk about our building without speaking about the Mount Fryston Community Building Sustainability Project. Quite a mouthful. But this project, it was the catalyst to our formal project, and it was the vehicle by which we could actually get the funds to do what we've done. And our partners in the project, as you can see, this is our new building up here on the right-hand side. When I say new, a redeveloped building. And our partners down here on the middle left, it's our cricket club. That building started off in 2013 as a single skin pavilion, and then was enhanced in 2019 to become the village nursery as well. And that's probably our best insulated building in the parish, because they built on the outside of that a complete cover of insulation materials. We have our parish church, over 1,000 years old, with all the problems associated with being in a conservation area and being solid limestone. And alongside it, to the back of it, is the church hall, built around 1970, and we now know without a stick of insulation in it whatsoever. And then we have our school, built around 1999, to the standards of 1999. A lot of shortcomings in that. And then to finish it off, our football club, which is basically containers, as you can see. So that's the group that's working together. But the essence of this is that we came together because it was a series of people who were like-minded, talking about sustainability in the summer of 2019. It was a time of Greta Thunberg and the world going on fire, or it appeared to be that, and Greta saying, no, the adults are not listening to us. And the sentiment between those people, those leaders when we were chatting was, this is daft. We have to do something about this. We have to do something about sustainability. What we want to do, we don't know. And by the way, we have no expertise, no time, and no money. Always the case. So we set about, well, what do we want to do? How are we going to do it? And at this point, I have to pay tribute to Chris Haley Norris, who's there, and Kate Irwin might be online, because I'd worked with Chris to redevelop the community centre. Chris, at that point in time, I think was Chief Operating Officer of Selby AVS, is now Chief Officer of Up for Yorkshire. And I went on to Chris, and one of those rare occasions where you get an immediate response to an email, I said to Chris, we have this idea that we want to do something about making our community buildings sustainable. What do you think? Do you think it's a goer? And I went to Chris because I knew that Chris did have all sorts of ideas about how to raise funds, and he did have some expertise to find expertise. He got the networking, and Chris came back and said, "Do you know, Ray, that's a fabulous idea. It's just the sort of thing we want to get into." Over the next 4 or 5 months, we defined our objectives, and our objectives were finished up to be fairly simple. What we wanted to do was to make our community buildings carbon neutral. It wasn't a case of how much we had to spend or how much we would save. We wanted to show that we could make a difference in our existing buildings so we could demonstrate to our villagers and others who might be interested what is possible. And if possible, we wanted to create exemplar buildings. The second objective was we wanted to share as much information as possible, data-backed, with our residents and with others. Our properties, you can see, are typical of North Yorkshire villages, with those 4 or 5 types of disparate buildings from 1,000 years old to 2019. And, there's no point in people making the same mistake. And being local, living within the local village, lots of people knew us. We live here, and we're a trusted source of information. At that time, there was a lot of dispute about climate change. I think most of that's gone now. But there's a lot of doubt about the viability of solar panels, about batteries, about air source heat pumps, and we wanted to sort things out and demonstrate if they did or did not work and be honest with the outcomes. We then had to get started, and this is where Chris really helped us, because Chris and Kate, Chris introduced us to Kate Irwin, the Yorkshire Energy Doctor, and between the two of them brought a lot of expertise to the table. Kate encouraged us to benchmark our performances against national standards as it stood. And yeah, we were able to share that sort of information. She then suggested that we actually share what price we were paying for our power. Now that presented itself as a very thorny issue, because despite drinking lots of beer together, people didn't want to do that. It's like, am I going to look silly? Are we buying the right power at the right price, etc., etc.? And eventually it really was a question of, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. And we shared that information. But it was a really difficult place to get off. We then started talking about the expertise. And yes, we needed to find somebody who could do a feasibility study. Was what we were hoping to do feasible? And again, Kate came up with the goodies of saying, there's a grant available from the Rural Communities Energy Fund. You could well qualify for that. And lo and behold, having applied, we did do. And that's where we got the expertise from to run the project. And a little bit later, Kate came forward and presented us with the opportunity to win some of the grants as well. In the meantime, Chris is saying, look, if you're going to win these grants, what you've got to do is demonstrate you've got community support. And Chris organised for us to be able to do a community survey. By the way, this is in 2020, and we're running all our meetings via Zoom. We've become suddenly experts at Zoom. In fact, the partner group never met for 2 years face-to-face. We became experts at Zoom, but we also managed to get the community survey out there, and out of 800 homes, we got 200 responses, of which 96% were positive, either strongly supported or supported. So overwhelming. And before that time, we got no indication of that sort of support. If I said every day since then has been a learning experience or another stay at school, it would be an understatement, because it's continually learning And two of the first things I learnt about were the energy hierarchy, because we said, yeah, what we need to do is put solar panels on, we need to put air source heat pump in, and actually, there's a lot you can do to reduce your energy consumption, become sustainable before you get to that point. I also learnt about fabric first, this little phrase, never heard it before, and that tells you everything what you need to do really to maximise your effort, i.e. insulate your buildings the best you can, and deal with that before you deal with anything. So that's where we're up to, and that's without the body of weight of the support of those people, the community building support, sustainability project, and the support from the community survey, our project would not have gone anywhere. After that point, we ran the project independently for independent buildings, under the stewardship of the governing bodies, as we all had to apply for our own funding. But we kept talking and communicating throughout. I'm going to move on. Right, so where we got to, where we started from, was I was saying before we started, back in 2007, when we were starting to financial sustainability. Being self-financed, we looked at what we could do to save money. And such things as putting timers on heating, having a single point where you turn the power off to the whole centre, were very important measures. At that time, I think we used 24 kilowatts for a 2-hour meeting. That's just on heating, because we only had electric. In 2011, we put our first extension on. We did so without putting any extra heat into the building. It seemed to work. And by the way, we had better insulation in that building. We know now that the previous building had very little, the original building. In 2013, we stepped up a gear. The conservatory, we put LED lights in, we put underfloor heating in, we had double glazing in it. But again, we had no way of heating it. So I think we eventually put 2 small fan heaters in, 1 kilowatt fan heaters into that, reluctantly, and we still managed to turn them off, ensure they were turned off when anybody left. In 2014, as I've mentioned, with Chris, we doubled the community centre in size. Insulation to current regs, double glazing, LED, underfloor gas heating was put in there, but without a gas supply. And it wasn't until after the thing was launched and opened that we managed to get the money from, I think it was the lottery fund, the Awards for All, to pay for the gas to come in. So I think the best phrase I can say is we were always catching the wave. And, the thing is that you take opportunities that come along, and Chris and the Selby District Council, Western Seth, had given us opportunity to redevelop our centre to enable the kids in the village to have something to do, youth clubs, scouts and things like that. And we grabbed it. Even when we didn't have enough money, we grabbed it. I mentioned the 2018 Beerfest thing. The trustees in 2019, very importantly, said whatever we do in the future and whenever it's possible, we will do things in a sustainable manner. And after that, 2020, the feasibility study we got underway, and that's where we really learned the importance of regular recording energy usage in as much detail as we possibly could, which wasn't much at that point in time. The next stages, well, yeah, thermal imaging camera and the WSB Eco Wall. Kate also brought along the idea that what we could do as a community engagement tool was to buy a thermal imaging camera and get individual residents to survey their houses, and they'd be enticed to do energy efficiency stuff. And she came along with an opportunity from the postcode lottery to apply for a grant for it. The grant was possibly up to £20,000, and I think the thermal imaging camera probably cost us about £1,500 to £2,000 maybe. And so I said again, Kate, what about the rest of the money? She said, oh, they don't award much money, these people, Ray. So we set about and applied for a grant from them, and including including solar panels and a battery. And lo and behold, we won it. We took delivery of the thermal imaging camera in the January, and in the meantime, the company WSP were offering grants to their employees for their communities. And one of the employees was in our village. He came to us and said, do you know, I think there's a grant opportunity here whereby you can get £3,000, but I'm not sure what you want to do with all that money. Well, in sustainability terms, £3,000 is not a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. And so we came up with this idea of creating a dry lining wall to the first part, or to one part of the original building, which was still exposed to the outside. And you can see there 3 guys there, John, Danny and Jack, who actually worked on it. John did the thermal imaging camera, and Jack and Danny were the 2 guys who did that work. The great thing about that was that the thermal imaging camera just came in time so as to be able to do before and after shots of that wall. I think I've done it again wrong. I have done it wrong. Help, Paul, help. How do I get out of this?
No, I think you're there now.
Yeah, I'm there now. Right. Yeah. Thank you. So this is, one of the first aspects of insulation. It's a fabric first, and this is another phrase I learned: a no regrets investments, because the whole aspect of what you're going to invest in was very problematic. The government didn't know at that time whether air source heat pumps were the right thing to go for. They were difficult. They were just, and they came down to, you've got to look at no regrets investments, and insulation is one of those things. So that's what we went for. So, is it coming? It's not moving, Paul.
Yeah, just click on the screen again to get control.
Am I there? Yes. So John, as well as looking at that wall on the side, which is the wall on the top left-hand corner, the thermal image of that screen, of that wall, surveyed the old building. Now, the before and afters are the one in the top left and the one down below it. On the top left, you can see the 2 lightsabers running vertically on the wall. Those are the underfloor heating pipes where the hot water's conveyed from the cylinder in the kitchen and into the floor area. The dark blue speaks for itself. The dark blue is the cold. There's 2 slabs on the floor, which we knew about. Those were concrete, but the wall itself, the original 1970 wall, is either purple or black. So that was very frightening, really, to see that amount of cold ingress into the building. Down below, that's the after shot, where you can see after we've insulated the wall, the lightsaber on the left-hand side of the door has been mitigated by the insulation. The wall is now, just a nice honey-coloured warm view in comparison to the code which is still ingressing from the outside through those doors. On the right-hand side, the same wall from the outside. Again, before you can see the heat coming through the door, the lightsaber on the wall, and this pipe structure, which in actual fact is a stench pipe from the original building, which when we redeveloped the centre, we didn't block off. It was a mistake, but we were rushed, and sure enough, so what we had there was our own heat flew to the outside world, and we were trying to heat the atmosphere. So that's where we what we saw to start with, and afterwards down below, again, it speaks for itself. The pipes are different temperature, the walls are different colour. We've just about done the job on that. So that was a job well done there, and it shows you the power of thermal imaging camera work, surveys, and the fact that you can do them both inside and out. Now, let's see. Yeah, here we go. Simultaneously with that work, we also took delivery in the March of the solar panels that we'd won the bid on, the grant funding from the People's Lottery. Our roof, as you can see, is not the ideal south-facing 45-degree roof with a clear vision of the sun all day long. It's all at jaunty angles. What we managed to fit on that roof were 24 solar panels, a total of 7.8 kilowatts of power, which was interesting, really, because the local power company, I think Northern Power Grid, said, oh, well, you only can put 4 kilowatts on there. Anyway, our contractor spoke to them and explained the situation about the roof variation. And he'd estimated that the most we could ever generate was 6 kilowatts of power. And sure enough, over the last almost 3 years now, that's the most we've ever done. And Northern Power Grid allowed us to put them on. So he just shows you any sort of roof configuration, you can get benefit out of it. The panels on the right-hand side, they face due east. And so we have the advantage of picking up sun and power from very early on in the morning in the summer period, and again right the way around until late afternoon, early evening. So we got good coverage of it, and also the amount of power that we actually need to do the building. One of the key things that occurred, though, as part of this this part of the project, was that we were provided with Solar REG. And Solar REG are a real-time energy management system. And we suddenly got vision and visibility of power installations and power usage that we'd never seen before in any sort of granulation. And if you don't mind the pun, that is very powerful when you come to start saying, so that's what's happening to my power, and I'll tell you more about that as well. About 3 months after this installation, the battery arrived, and that presented itself with some challenges as well. The solar power installation went like a dream. It was wonderful. I wish all things would go as easily as that. Where shall we put the battery? Yeah, so our battery, which you can see on the right, is 10 kilowatts. Real usage out of that is about 9 kilowatts. It never drains right down, and it's been transformational to us. Where do we put it? Well, we need to put it near to the electric box and other stuff. And that actually was in the cupboards at the far end of the hall there. And it was occupied, that cupboard. It was occupied by the before and after school club, where you can see it's laid out. The kids are in there, not the kids, but the tables are in there preparing for the kids to arrive. And so we had to juggle things and accommodate their storage elsewhere by giving them extra storage, as simple as that, really. But it's worked very well. It's locked away. And as I say, it's been transformational for us. It means that for about 8 or 9 months a year, we are almost self-sufficient in power. I say almost because you do get rainy days, and there's some days where you just don't get the power that you need. And even with a battery, it drains off. But that's not anything like what it was before. The Solar REG battery, or the Solar REG system, started to give us information. And if I look at these 3 slides, The one on the left-hand side, dated 22nd of March 21, that's one of the first that was presented to us. It was like, wow, what's this? And just to explain, if anyone's never seen this sort of stuff before, what it says is that we produced 37 kilowatts of power that day, which is like, what? How much? Of which we used just 30%, and we exported 68% of it. We used almost 24 kilowatts. We didn't know how much power we were really using per day, but suddenly we got this breakdown. And we also saw, most alarmingly, these spikes. And it's like, what are they? So a spike alert, and every day I go along and look at this and think, what's those spikes? And it sort of troubled us. We thought we have a wet well and a rising main to deal with our wastewater. We thought it was our wet well pump which was clicking in and intermittently. We thought we'd got a water leak. No, we haven't got a water leak. We checked that out by monitoring our water meter. We thought it was because people were leaving open the kitchen door and that the fridge was trying to cool the whole of the hall or something like that. No, it wasn't that. And being in March, we didn't turn anything off. So it's like, okay, let's be patient. Let's see what happens. When it came to June, the battery arrived, and suddenly those red spikes, those nasty red spikes, where we're buying energy to supply those spikes, they went blue, which is wonderful, because suddenly with the battery, we were supplying the whole of our needs, and we still had almost 50% surplus. That particular day, we generated 50 kilowatts, but the spikes are still there. We're still wondering what it's all about. As we moved into July, the place warmed up. We took the brave decision to turn off the heating system. Typically in our centre, we leave the heating on all the time with a set point of 18 degrees because the place is used from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 or 11 o'clock at night and at the weekend. So we just leave it on. It's the easiest way of managing it. When we got the battery in and when it was warm enough, I said to Nigel, our maintenance guy, Nigel, we have to sort this out. It's warm enough to live without the heating system. Just turn it off and let's see what happens. He said, yeah, I'll do it tonight after the people leave. The following morning, I had a look at it and I couldn't believe it. The problem had gone away. I didn't speak to him that day. I spoke to him the following day when I got that confirmation of the graph on the right-hand side. And I then contacted him and said, Nigel, you've solved the problem. What was it? Did it take you long to do it? He said, oh, it took me about 5 minutes, Ray. I said, what was it? He said, well, Ray, believe it or not, the immersion heater was switched on. All those spikes, all that energy was the immersion heater clicking in and out over, would you believe, 7 years, because we locked the controls away so users couldn't fiddle with it, and someone had left it on. So that cost us about a minimum of 5 kilowatts a day for 7 years. So there you go. We learned a major lesson there. And that was, you don't know what you don't know. We never have the visibility to know what that was going on. And the other one was, you manage what you measure. And those two phrases have come to live with us all the time on an ongoing basis. It's just a learning experience which I share with everybody. You manage what you measure. Does solar work? I said earlier, yes, it does. And that's an unqualified yes. The graph on the right-hand side was the estimated monthly energy production which our contractor gave us. That's reflected in the green spikes. The red bars are what wheat toning we consume. The graph on the right is the actual month-by-month energy production since 2021. And I just draw you to a couple of things on that. One is that's the 500 kilowatts per month production level. And you can see that on the left-hand side, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a bit spikes over the top. And I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months where we're producing more than 500. The second line is the million kilowatts per month. And there we've got 4 months where we've actually produced more than 1 million kilowatts. And in fact, it might surprise you that this year we had our record production in July, just here, which was about, I think it was 1,000,007 kilowatts of power. No, it's in June, I tell you, June here, 1,000,007. And yeah, it's heartening to know that you know, somebody for once gave you an estimate or gave us an estimate which, you know, you could beat, or a forecast you could beat. And finally, I think we all know that October this year, I think, was the wettest on record. Well, and with it being wet comes clouds, and with clouds mean no sun. However, the estimate was on that line, and again, you can see that each of the months in October, including this month, we've been beaten the forecast amount of power generated. Solar works. And to date, we've had no problems whatsoever with the panels, with the inverter, or with any other aspect of the installation. We then move on to energy efficiency work. And courtesy of the lottery funds reaching communities fund, they've funded us for 3 different aspects of work. One is energy efficiency work, one is the air source heat pump, and another aspect is for a battery, along with a lot of other community engagement work. So the first sort of 3 items up there are pretty straightforward. The new and better fitting installation doors, well, that was straightforward. That's to try and combat the heat loss that we saw on the thermal imaging survey. Replacing all non-LED lights with LED, yep, that's a straightforward thing. Movement sensors, that's an absolute necessity in my opinion. It's the challenge of changing users' behaviour. It never stops. And my attitude towards it is automate as much as possible. And despite what I've just said about locking things away, get things locked away. If they can tamper with it, they will do. There's the movement sensor controls. There's 3. We put 3 into 3 of our rooms within the building, and 3 in the external sheds where, you know, people had a habit of leaving lights on for weeks at a time, storage sheds. And when you, despite asking users to turn lights off when they leave rooms, it's just like sometimes talking to the wall. We also did additional insulation, sorting out some of those nasty, dark spaces which you saw on the thermal imaging camera survey. And this is a neat one, visible control of loft space. Often people have got a nice little ropes thingy for turning lofts on and off. That's fine, but again, if you're using contractors or volunteers, doesn't always work. And there's many times where you can go into a loft and see it on. What we've put in is a little visible control which indicates if the light is on in the loft, and that's right in the lobby, so someone will see it. What we're going to do now, this is born out of our experience of just managing drafts is where you see that double door, and we've got a similar double door in our conservatory. We're going to put in flexible door strips. And we learned this from our beer fest, where we wanted to stop the heat coming, leaving, and the cold coming in. And we're going to do the same on there, because people are going in and out all the time. We'd look to build an airlock, and you tell me, please tell me what works for you. The air source heat pump. Well, this presented us with some challenges. First of all, we didn't know what value for money was. None of us got any experience of it. We didn't know if we'd have to apply for planning permission, and we didn't know if we'd qualify for the boiler scrappage scheme. The answer to those are, we think we got value for money. It's by the way, it's a 9 kilowatt air source heat pump. It's nice and neat. It fits into a nice little space for us. Would we have had to apply for planning permission? Yes. Selby District Council, now Yorkshire County Council, they told us that the air source heat pump should not be visible to the general public. It should be hidden away somewhere. And also the noise elements of it, there's a 70 decibel limit on it, and the 70 decibels, it means that should not be audible in the nearest habitable room. So that's the sort of limits of it. So, and then the habitable room is not a kitchen, by the way. The other aspects of this are collecting data before and after. Many people have said air source heat pumps don't work. You're never as warm. And so people's perception of warmth varies. So what we set about a year ago was to collect data on the main hall before we started. That's temperature data. It was just single point, and after data. And progressively, we're gathering more and more data. We now have smart life meters. These are mobile little Wi-Fi's. They cost £20 each to record data in each of the main rooms. And that's given us a lot more visibility on the profiles of those rooms, temperature-wise. And we're doing it both before and after. The other thing is about benchmarking energy usage. This is particularly relevant to the electricity that we were using before and the electricity afterwards. Previously, we were using about 8 to 10 kilowatts of cubic meters of gas per week. That equates to about 80 to 90 kilowatt hours of electricity. So we're now measuring that. Electricity wise, we were using 20 to 25 kilowatts per day. So we're into all that measurement stuff. After 4 months, we were delayed because of the delay in the activation of the Aquaria smart cloud system, which gives me visibility on my phone. So far, we've met all expectations except for one user and one observation from another. The observation being, it was a bit chilly this morning. We're uncertain about the comparative performance yet. Fortunately, we had a cold snap and discovered a few things. You never know what you don't know. The system we hadn't connected to a continuous electricity supply. It was still off. It was off when the community centre was not being used. So naturally, it was a bit chilly. Our building control central heating system stopped working with the air source heat pump being in there, so it wasn't integrated properly. We have to correlate the various automatic monitoring systems. You wouldn't believe that a temperature can read so differently off of 3 different systems, but it does. And we now know we've got 3 completely different climatic rooms to manage. That shouldn't be surprising. Every room in every house, in our house, is different, and I guess it is in most places. We have to work out the best operating system, i.e. timings of things. We don't know if it will do the job in the winter yet because we haven't got there. And most importantly, we don't know if it will do what it says on the tin yet. The thing that everybody gets told is, yeah, it's a correlation of about 1 to 3, one unit of power in for 3.5 units of power out, of heat out. We don't know if that's the case or not. We'll have to see. What have I learned? I've mentioned these two things right at the top of the page. You don't know what you don't know. And I will also add, don't beat yourselves up because you don't know it. After all, most of the people I can see around that on screen tonight are volunteers, and nobody makes a glaring mistake because they want to. So just learn from it. That's all I'd say. What you measure is what you manage, and I think I've given some illustrations of that. Another illustration of that is the guys at the cricket club. They used another sort of smart meter monitor, and they found that they were using 10 kilowatts of power a week just to keep their beer cold through the week. They only drank it at the weekend, so yeah, they've now turned it off through the week. Things change rapidly. Reevaluate what you're doing and why. Is there a better way? And I'm not saying don't do anything, but technology is changing and you can do things differently. This next one's absolutely straightforward. We've got lots of examples of this now. Every building is different. Every organisation, every household, every individual circumstance is different. One size, one solution doesn't fit all or work for everyone. Yeah, we all live and work in sort of houses which are hybrids, which have changed in some way. And so, particularly community buildings, very few of them were actually built at a time when, this is a passive house system or anything like that. It just doesn't work. You should look at peeling back the layers of your energy consumption to see where to get to. The chair of the community association, Robin Parkin, he did a study of his own energy usage in his house by turning off one circuit at a time and just checking on his meter what was the difference was. And he saved himself 40% of his power. One of the things he discovered was his underfloor heating in his bathroom had a fault on it and was permanently on. That was a big, big saving. Just peel them back. Make a strategic plan and then make a realistic, pragmatic plan. I'm a pragmatist. You can only do what you can do with the money you've got, and you can only spend your money once. So just be pragmatic about what you want to do and what impact you're going to make as well. The impact you make, if you're talking about solar panels, might be a big statement impact, or it might be that, really what you want to do is to make the place warmer, therefore insulation is better. Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't be impatient. Do a little and often. And that's, in many cases, that's all that most community organisations can afford. The point 8 is this, that just be realistic. Lots of people moan about the governments and sustainability, but things are changing rapidly in that whole renewable energy, sustainable energy sphere. And so you need to give them governments time and space to create workable strategy, in my opinion, with scope for reappraisal. For instance, I think it's over the past 6 months, what we've learned is that solar panels will double in output within 5 years because there's been a technological breakthrough which actually allows them to tap into the blue spectrum of light. So doubling it. That suddenly made wind farms less attractive because solar panels are going to be able to produce energy that much cheaper. Nice position to be in, but it wasn't actually put forward that way when we heard that there'd been no bidders on the last solar round of wind farms. Number 9, everybody can make a difference and reduce their CO2 emissions in some way. There's some easy ones I can spot there, I've just cited. The more difficult ones are when we actually start having to deal with behaviour, our behaviour. and to curtail what we will do to reduce our CO2 emissions. And that might involve travel in some form or other, whether we go abroad, how we travel, etc., etc. As for the last point, what's the solution to effective provision of heat? I don't know, quite honestly. Everyone would love to think it's hydrogen. I'm uncertain about that. It's got a long way to go before it'll be available for everybody. And down, yeah, here I am. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions? I've covered a lot of stuff there. And over to you, folks. I'm sorry if I've taken up longer than I was allocated. Sorry, Paul. Where are you?
No, that's fine. How can we not forgive you when there's so many powerful insights there, and your use of data is amazing, by the way. I mean, I think that's a big lesson for all of us. So yeah, time for sort of chit chat and Q&A. There are some in chat already, which we'll come to. If you've got more questions, either use the chat or use the little hand raise button that's there at the bottom of your screen. I think under the reactions button, if I remember rightly, and we'll come to you there as well. Certainly some questions we've got here already. There's one from Julie about the batteries, Ray.
Yeah.
So did you not consider just selling the electricity back to the grid instead of having batteries, or are you doing that as well? Because I guess you still have excess even when the batteries are charged, right?
There's a little technical problem on this, Paul, and that is that depending on who you get your money from which funder, you may well be constrained and not able to actually use it as a source of income. And
right.
At the time, certainly the lottery fund, I believe, or certainly the waste fund, what is it, the landfill tax, that precluded you from actually selling electricity, and they didn't like to support solar installation. So you need to really check with who you're getting your grants from as to what the constraints on it are.
Really interesting. Very good practical tip. Joss,
Yeah.
I saw your hand shoot up there. Have you got something you want to chip in on that? Is it related to this?
Yep, thank you. Sorry, just trying to do it on my phone. So, yes. So, oh dear.
Whoops.
Apologies. Just dropped the phone. Yes. So I'm a village hall trustee in Rydale. For those of you who don't know me, and I also work for North Yorkshire Council as a climate officer. So, thanks very much for that. Fantastic insight. And I know you go around to lots of different groups and give your experiences, and I'm sure a lot of people have taken a lot of confidence from what you've done there. My volunteer capacity in Rydale, we've successfully applied for funding for 5 village halls to put in solar panels and battery storage. Yeah. They've now all gone in. They're at Ganton, Wintringham, Sandhutton, Welburn and Old Malton. And so they've all got solar panels and battery storage. And just the thing about the battery storage, as you've shown us, is that basically you're using your own power before you buy anybody else's power. And that's the benefit, that's the financial benefit. You don't get very much money at all selling back to the grid. It's sort of, you wouldn't generate an income really from that. So I would suggest, if you're getting solar panels, get battery storage as well. And that picture of it was really interesting, because I don't think I've actually, people don't really know what the batteries look like. The fact they look like a little slimline heater is fantastic to see. Just a word of our experience. So the 6th hall that we got funding for was a Motherby Village Hall, which is the one that I'm the booking clerk for, and the reason why I started the project. But what was really important that we did for all the halls was to get a building survey and an asbestos survey, because you need to know that your roof is capable of taking solar panels. So we did the surveys, and a Motherby Hall was the one out of the 6 where the roof wasn't strong enough. So we couldn't go ahead with our solar panels at that time. And we also knew, and I think we knew this anyway, but we also found that the roof tiles were asbestos based because it was 1930s building. And so when you go up onto, when the installer goes up onto the roof, they would have to drill through the tiles or else take it off and replace it with something else. So you do need to make sure that you do a building survey. You know, they're expensive, but, you know, important, because otherwise you might go all the way to getting an installer and then finding out that you can't actually install because your roof isn't strong enough. So so just as a sort of a word of warning, in the other 5 halls where it's gone in, I'm getting really fantastic feedback, just like the example from Monk, Fryston and Hillam. Massive savings, just really, really pleased with it. So that's all really positive. Just a quick word with my North Yorkshire Council hat on. I was going to show my name badge, but I haven't got it with me. We've just launched a grant scheme called the Shared Prosperity Fund for Community Climate Action. Through that, you can apply for a building audit. So we will send a consultant to your community building to do an audit, to show you what the opportunities are for solar and battery, but importantly, energy efficiency as well. Really, really important. And thanks for pointing that out to us as well. So we can send a consultant to do that audit. And on the back of that, you can, or if you don't have an audit, but you already know what you want to do, that a part of this Shared Prosperity Fund is also a grant scheme, capital grants, up to 80% of your project costs. You can make as much money as you want afterwards. So that's not a problem for us. So that's 80% grant up to £50,000. So that would help to fund both the energy efficiency stuff, if you're looking for insulation or double glazing, whatever it might be, plus solar, air source heat pumps, all those sorts of things, battery storage. It doesn't have to be solar, it could be some other form of renewable energy. But just to say that's out there. If you look on the, if you just want to Google North Yorkshire Shared Prosperity Fund, there's a page on the council's website, and you've got all the details there. So just, you know, there's no excuse not to in North Yorkshire now. We know it works. We know it saves your organisation money, and we can get a grant to do it with. So thanks very much.
Yeah, that's brilliant news. Thanks, Joss, and for your insights as well. Joss, maybe you put a link in the chat if you can find one before we close tonight for the grants. I think that will be useful, and we can share it afterwards as well. So, Ray, yeah, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just to reinforce what Joss said about the roofs. Our church hall was found to have a just strong enough roof to support what's there already, i.e. the slate tiles. Even insulation material is very, very touch and go as to whether they could do something different with it. And so right now the church hall has got a pretty tile there disguising slate tiles, and that's all there is. And to do anything, because they wanted to put solar panels on, to do anything, they've really got to rebuild their roof.
Okay, yeah, major job.
And as for surveys, when Chris and Kate started to give us some guidance on our overall project, Kate put together a building energy survey questionnaire for us to go out and survey our own buildings. So just to get started, you don't actually need experts to do that. We did it ourselves in lockdown, and we collated the information, and Kate just use that to give us guidance about where to go and start looking and start doing stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah, fantastic. I just realized I did promise I would turn the recording off, didn't I? Which